Record. Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just give it a few more minutes and then we'll begin.
Afternoon, okay.
All right, folks, I think we have been generous enough in waiting for the others. I think we'll begin and then they can catch up whenever they come in. Okay, so I trust everyone received the homework that I emailed earlier today. If not, let me know, please. It probably means I did something screwy and messed up your email address. And we'll talk about the homework in a moment. But what I do want to do is finish our conversation about some of the economic terms, some of the basic, something fell. All right, let's see now if we are back in business. Okay, so you should once again be able to see our class notes on this PowerPoint slide. And we wanted to take up our conversation that we started last class about some of our economic vocabulary, some of the terms that we're going to use. That's going to be important that we make sure we get them right. And we had defined, first of all, what we meant by a market, which is just simply an arrangement that allows buyers and sellers to exchange goods and services for money. And we said there are two types of markets that we're going to be concerning ourselves with. The first is a factor market. That is a market for the facts of production. We talked last class and we identified the 5 facts of production as natural resources, labor, physical capital, human capital, and entrepreneurship. Right? And the factor market is the market for these facts of production. These facts of production are acquired by firms who in turn use these factors of production to produce goods and services, which they in turn sell back to us. The goods market is the market for these goods and services, which are in fact produced by the firms, and they sell these to households, that is you, me, government, businesses, etc., for money. So we have two types of markets that we're going to concern ourselves with: the factor market and the goods market. A few other definitions that we want to make sure we establish very early on is that when we're going to talk a lot about a household, and we want to be very clear that what we mean when we talk about a household. A household in economic terms is not necessarily a family that is related to each other. In fact, a household is any individual, could just be an individual or group of individuals who live in the same housing unit. So when we're talking about a household, we're talking about an individual, could just be one person, or a group of individuals who all live in the same housing unit. That's what we mean when we talk about a household. They don't necessarily have to be related in any way. And then our general definition of a firm or a company or a business: a firm is an organization that uses the resources that we talked about, the factor of production. A firm is an organization that uses these resources to produce a product or service, which it then sells for money. All right. So a firm is an organization that uses these resources to produce a product or service, which it then sells for money. Now, there are several types of firms that we want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what they are and how they differ from each other. The first type of firm that we're going to concern ourselves with is called a sole partnership. Sorry, a sole proprietorship. My apologies. A sole proprietorship is a firm that's owned by a single person. And most importantly, from our perspective, that person is responsible or liable for all the firm's debts. So a sole proprietorship, you own the business, any debt that is incurred by the business falls on you. Right.
Mr. DeMar, sorry for interrupting.
It's a firm owned by a single person who is liable for all the firm's debts. I'm sorry, my apologies, say again.
Sorry, Mr. DeMar. I don't know if it's me, but the screen is blurry for some reason. Now it's hold on. It's better now. Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't know what that's about.
Blurry. I don't know. I mean,
let me stop the share.
Still blurry. I don't know.
All right. Now, but I am clear. Yes. The picture of me is clear.
You're clear. It's just your screen was a.
So let's try it again then.
Okay.
All right. And how's it now? Yes? No?
Yeah, it's better now.
It's loading.
Oh, it's still loading.
Yeah, it's back.
Okay, good. All right. So that's a sole proprietorship owned by a single person, and that person is responsible or liable for all the firm's debts. Also, of course, any profits made by the firm goes straight into that person's pocket. Secondly, is a partnership. A partnership is a firm owned by two or more partners. And the key feature of a partnership is that each partner is individually liable for the firm's debts. So if you are in a partnership, all right, and one of the partners run up a string of debt or run off with the money, you are still fully responsible for all the debts of the partnership. Each partner is individually liable. Very often you hear talk about a marriage is a partnership. And that is true in the sense that if you and your husband sign a mortgage contract with the bank and you catch that cheating bastard and you kick him out of the house, that does not mean that somehow, the mortgage is now his responsibility. All right. Both of you are fully responsible for the whole mortgage. And if one of you ups and dies, then the other person is still responsible for the whole mortgage. All right. If the marriage breaks up and one person decides not to pay, the other person is still responsible for the whole mortgage. It's a partnership, a firm owned by two or more partners who are individually liable for the firm's debts. And thirdly, a corporation. And in legal terms, a corporation is described as a person, a legal person for legal purposes. So a corporation is a legal entity owned by stockholders, but each stockholder's responsibility or each stockholder's liability is only limited to the value of his or her stock or share in the company. All right. So you bought some shares in, I don't know, Doctor's Hospital, and that's worth $200. If Doctor's Hospital goes belly up, and because they ran up a ton of debts, the most you would be on the hook for is $200. Right? You will be liable only for the value of your stock or share in the company. So those are the three types of firms: a sole proprietorship, a partnership, and a corporation. And we wanted to get those definitions down just to finish off our conversation last class about some of the key definitions that we're going to see very early on. Okay. I assume everybody got the homework. Also assuming you had a chance to take a look at the homework. So I thought it would have been appropriate that we work through a couple of examples of the kind of questions that you would see on your homework that is due on Monday. All right. So you will get a scenario like this, and you would have gotten a scenario like what you see on the screen here. All right. And in this case, we're talking about a production's possibilities curve. And most of the questions you will find in this class are going to be word problems, as opposed to sort of strictly, generic math problems. All right, we say that for the math class. Economics is all about thinking. The other important thing to note, not only for this homework but going forward, is generally there tend not to be so much a right or wrong answer, but an answer that shows an appropriate use of the correct, in this case, production possibilities curve, or the correct interpretation of that curve, or the correct, when we're talking about economic principles, which is also part of your homework, the correct principle. But if if you can convince me that a principle that you're using wasn't the one that I considered, but it makes sense, and you can show me where it makes sense, then I have no problem giving you the full mark. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Okay, so the first kind of question you would have would be something like this. You have a country, in this case, the landlocked African nation of Lesotho, which is a real country. And let's say this country specializes in the production of just two products. They have tourism, they take people on safari, and they have this native arts and crafts, the spear and the shield and the grass skirts or whatever it is. All right, so that's how they make their money. They either take people on safari or try to sell them native tribal arts and craft and convince the people that this stuff is not made in China. Okay. So now you're given several scenarios. For each of the following scenarios, and given your understanding of the production possibilities curve, discuss Lesotho's economic situation. Your response must focus on an analysis of the economy's position relative to its PPC. Right. So these are the kind of questions you have to be able to answer based on the scenario that is put towards you. One, is the economy within its PPC, on its PPC, or outside of its PPC, beyond its PPC? All right. First things first. and explain your rationale for this conclusion. All right, say why you think it's within, why you think it's on, or why you think it's beyond its PPC. Secondly, based on the scenario that's been put forward to you, do you expect this economy to be moving towards or away from this PPC? And finally, some speculation. Is there any further action that you would recommend to the government? So let's see if we can apply that to, let's say, this scenario here. Let's start with scenario 1, and by all means, you can chime in at any point in time. All right. So first scenario, despite its best effort and encouragement, there remains a minority of citizens who are unwilling to participate in the economic growth and development of Lesotho. They're happy to bum around and do nothing, sit home and watch TV. They don't want to act as safari guides, nor do they want to work to produce native arts and crafts. Okay, so first question I have to you is, let's go back a second. Given that the case, would you expect the Lesotho economy to be within, on, or beyond its PPC? Anyone? You have some people, a minority of citizens, and they ain't a majority, but you do have some lousy citizens, and they ain't want to do nothing.
So good afternoon. It should be within the PPC?
All right. So you're saying if we can look at, here's our examples.
So it should be number 1 within the PPC.
Yes, but number 1 just shows the PPC going inward.
Correct.
But is that what we're seeing?
Well, if everybody isn't participating, then we're not getting the full efficiency of the PPC. We're not going to be on the borderline where we use all of our funds, right?
So you're saying we're being inefficient.
We're inefficient.
All right, let's see, let's go back to our notes. All right. So wouldn't that mean that we would be near, see that first star inside the PPC?
You mean where it says Y4, between
Yes.
Y4 and Y2?
And between Y4 and Y3.
Y3, yeah, we'll be on the inside.
Right. All right. So we'll be inside the PPC, but the PPC at this point isn't moving, right? All we're saying is that right now we're at a point of inefficiency. We could do better. If we could get these bastards working, we would be better off overall. Let's see. So here's our note. Points inside the PPC represents points of inefficiency. All right. There may be wastage, mismanagement of resources, misuse, negligence, or even criminality. Right. And certainly people, a portion of the population who are not doing any work at all, which certainly means a wastage of our, in this case, human resources. And that would place us inside the PPC. So that if we were to try and craft an answer for this first question, let's go back. Despite the best efforts and encouragement, there remains a minority of citizens who are unwilling to participate in the economic growth and development of Lesotho. They don't want to act as safari guides, so they don't want to work in the tourism industry, nor do they want to work and produce arts and crafts. In that case, then, we should be here, graph number 4, where we see what we are inside the PPC. You see the little star? That will be the first bullet point that we want to respond to. In that case, we should be saying, we're starting off inside the PPC. We're starting off at a point of inefficiency because we have some people who should be working, can be working, but are not working.
Excuse me, Mr. Demerit.
Yes, ma'am.
So as long as we're not using no figures, like money,
Right.
no figures, then we just use the one, we just have the star on the inside, if it's on the inside for inefficiency.
Right, we're explaining the concept
Okay,
itself. All right.
All
So
right.
what else is they asking us for? First of all, they ask us, are we within or beyond the PPC? And we just talked about our rationale for saying we're inside the PPC. We're saying we're at a point of inefficiency. We have wastage of human resources, or we're not fully utilizing our human resources, or whatever other terminology you want to use to say that we have people who could be working, should be working, but are not working. All right. Are you moving towards or away from the PPC? Neither. We're stuck on the inside the PPC because these people refuse to do work when they should be. All right. Can we recommend anything to the government? How do you deal with a problem where you have people who can work but don't want to work? Anyone?
And make the benefits of the job more, I guess.
How?
Disciplinary action or termination.
Well, no,
or
these people don't want work, so
hire
you
more
fire.
people.
Wait, no, hang on a second. Okay, everybody who wants to work is working, all right? But we have some people who don't want work.
Expand the production. You only have two, tourism and tribal arts and craft. Maybe there should be.
Yeah,
another.
but that's all. Remember now, we said one of the things that we want to address in terms of what to produce is what factor of production we have available to work with. If you're some poor African country, the only thing you have is wildlife, and maybe you have some village crafts, arts and crafts. Any farming may be just enough to feed your population, and that's it. Yeah. And all the people who want to work is already working in either the safari industry or is already working, producing, arts and crafts to sell to the tourists. But we have a hardcore group of persons who absolutely refuse to do any work. How do you deal with somebody who only want to sit down at home and draw, money from the government? What's called unemployment benefits, Social Security, social benefits. What do you do?
If you cut back on some, will work.
Possible, but all we're asking for, and I'm not saying anything you're saying is incorrect. I'm saying here's where you're being asked to speculate, and not in 2 or 3 pages, a sentence or two. What do you think a government might want to consider to try and address the problem? There are some people who may say, there is sort of youth labor camps, where you pick these people up and take them to some farm to do some work, whether they like it or not. I don't know. Someone may suggest you offering them money to go and work, because maybe anything that's worth more to them than sitting on the blocks. I don't know, but I'm curious to find out what you would advise this government in this particular scenario.
Maybe the government could raise the minimum wage.
And you think that would make them want to go to work?
Yes, I think so. Money makes the mayor jump.
Possible.
Mhm.
Possible, but you have some people who say, listen, I could hustle more than what they won't pay me. But okay, I mean, if you think that's a possibility, then that would be something you put in your answer, and we will have a conversation about it when I'm grading your answer. Okay, let's look at another scenario. Scenario number 2. We had a tragedy, a recent killing of a family of tourists on safari. Now, we're not speculating as to how they got killed. It is possible, let's say, I don't know, a rogue elephant or a lion attacked them, or even say poachers. We don't know because the question doesn't tell us. All the question is telling us that a family of tourists was killed while they were on the safari. And this led to a 50% reduction in tourists coming, tour bookings. All right, so let's go back to what is being asked. Is the economy within, on, or beyond its PPC? And is it moving towards or away from its PPC?
Moving away from the PPC.
Explain. Okay, first of all, which diagram are you looking at?
So I would be looking at the diagram, the first one.
Okay. Why?
The reason why I say it is because if the tourism industry suffer a loss, then that means the PPC would be moving inward.
Hang on a second, let's go back to the question. As this is an issue what we're going to deal with quite often, you're going to be asked to actually read the question as opposed to assuming what you think the question is actually saying. The question is saying, family of tourists on safari were killed. This led to a 50% reduction in tour bookings.
So that means it should be diagram number 2, where safari moves inward. Yes?
You're asking or telling me? Explain.
I'm telling you, it's not the first one, it's the second one, because the safari took a blow at 50%. It didn't say safari and arts and craft, it just says safari. So then it will move inward on the safari part and not where arts is.
Okay, I could buy that. You know, that sounds like something worthy of full marks, right? So in fact, only the safari industry is the one suffering, because they're the ones who lost 50% of the bookings, right? It didn't affect the entire economy because nothing in the question says that the ability to produce and sell arts and crafts went down. Now, it is possible for someone to argue that, you know, fewer tourists coming on safari may also mean fewer tourists buying arts and crafts. Maybe. That is an extrapolation, and that is an assumption, but one thing you can't say for sure, the number of tourists coming on safari fell by 50%. You don't know yet, or you can't say for sure because the question doesn't give you enough information to say that arts part of the industry went down, you know, but we know for sure the safari side went down. All right. So what else? Is there any further action that you would recommend to the government? If so, please advise. Any recommendation? No?
You think they could include, you think they could include insurance? I don't know.
Safari. It's possible. Think about this way. You remember, is it a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months ago, 4 or 5 or 6 tourists got killed in Exuma in the hotel. I think it's like carbon dioxide poisoning or something. Does it ring a bell?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So here's a scenario. All right. A very bad public relations event. because that's what it amounts to. What can you do to counter it? All right.
Okay. Account of the safari accident, that's what you mean?
We didn't say it was an accident. All we can say for sure is the family got killed.
You can, I guess, put safety measures that, or probably assess the safari tour and see where some,
Maybe reduce the cost to go to the safari zone.
no,
No way.
Okay.
them, the cost ain't
You
enough.
think that would help?
Well, I mean, people would be more, well, it's cheaper, first and
Mhm.
foremost. Or maybe offer some additional feature along with the safari zone, I guess. You visit, you get half off, some certain gift items or whatever the case may be. There's just some sort of a incentive for it.
Okay, that's possible. Reduce the price, possible. Have visitors take some insurance, possible. Have a PR campaign highlighting the safety records of safari, possible. Have a PR campaign indicating the rarity of such an event that you saw the other day, possible. Extolling the safety steps that were put in place to make sure this kind of thing never happens again, possible. I'm just asking you to think about it. All right. Put yourself in a position where you have to try and sort of recover your industry. What can you do? All right, so let's look at scenario number 3.
Mr. Merritt.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we move on, I just want to know with respect to the various graphs you have there, are you going to teach us how we're going to plot it? Or like, for example, how would we know in that scenario which one was the y-axis, x-axis for arts versus safari versus where you have the arrow for the second exhibit?
Well, you see the axes are labeled, arts and safaris.
Right, but like in your rough diagram, how would I know then arts is supposed to be in this case for the y-axis as opposed to the x? I'm just asking.
It doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that all right, if you look at diagram number 2, where you see the safari declined, right, because of the incident. So you can see the PPC shifted inward for safari and the arts part of it didn't move at all. All right, that should tell you that whatever happened only affected safari.
Okay.
Look at the third one. Here you see where something is affecting only the arts, but it made the arts one better. It caused the PPC to shift outward relative to the arts section.
Right.
But nothing happened to the safari section.
Okay.
So you're looking for, in that case, it must be some scenario in which the art community benefited, but the safari part of the industry, the safari part of the economy didn't.
Okay.
The first scenario, if you look at the first diagram, it says whatever happened, it caused both the arts and the safari part, the whole economy to shrink. The production possibilities curve fell inward symmetrically. That means the whole economy, whatever it was, it affected arts and safari equally and caused both of them to fall. And if you look at the fourth scenario, it doesn't say anything except that it shows that we are a point inside the PPC. We're at a point of inefficiency. That's a little star that you see there.
Mm-hmm.
All
Okay.
right.
I see now.
Okay. So let's go back to our scenario number 3. African National Development Bank has offered Lesotho a grant. So this is not a loan. A grant is somebody just giving you money. The African National Development Bank has offered Lesotho a grant of $10 million to purchase equipment and machinery to greatly improve the production of native arts and craft. Question: is the economy within or beyond its PPC? Are we moving towards or away from its PPC? And is there any further action you recommend to the government? First, let's see if we can find out what's going on. We got $10 million. Well, Lesotho got $10 million. And it was earmarked for their arts and craft industry.
So it'll be for the third, it'll be for the third.
Diagram?
Yeah, when the arts is going.
Where we see an improvement in the arts sector.
Right, and not the safari.
And nothing happened to safari.
Right.
Correct.
Fine. And what are your recommendations to government? Is there any further action that you recommend to the government?
Well, the government now could focus on trying to get some of those delinquent workers, people who don't want to work. Maybe they could increase it a couple dollars and then offer them and they could come working art and craft because they get more money, eh?
I like that, but don't do that.
Okay.
Well, no, what I'm saying, don't connect questions unless you're told that the questions are connected.
Oh.
So right now, this is as if nothing, we don't know of anything that may have happened otherwise. All we know is this. Right? All we know is that we got $10 million for our arts and crafts sector, our orange economy, if you will. Right? It is very possible for you to say the government don't need to do anything. They get the money, arts sector improved, safari sector is still going along the same as before. We're better off overall, aren't we? Nothing happened to the safari sector, but that doesn't, nothing we have in the question says that the safari sector improved, right? But nothing in the question says that the safari sector fell. So we must assume otherwise it continued as it was before. It's arts that the arts sector improved. So if you have an economy that's going and the industries are moving in a certain sector, in a certain direction, and one sector start doing better, doesn't that mean that the entire economy is now doing better? No?
Yes.
So it is possible to look at this question and say, the government don't need to do nothing else. All right. Because there is nothing else in the question that says the government, there's something that the government needs to do. It's quite possible to say, okay, thanks for the money. We will put it in the correct usage. All right. You gifted us with a new clinic. Thank you very much. And we will now put that clinic to use.
Is that what really happened though? I'm confused a bit because I thought we just had incidents on the safari. Am I not able to use some of the funds that was assigned from arts to the safari for the improvement and enhancement of security or insurance for these persons?
Except that you are connecting events that are not connected. Let's go back to the question. Here's our question. For each of the scenarios, and given your understanding of PPC, discuss Lesotho's economic situation. There's nothing here that says that the scenarios are in any particular order, that one follows the other, or that they're connected in any way. And who's to say that, in fact, the safari event may have taken place after the arts money? Safari event may have taken place, I don't know, and the previous year, 10 years ago, who knows? We don't, because the question doesn't give us any of that information. So it is always dangerous to try and connect points unless there's something that says they're connected.
So let me ask that. I'm gonna just, okay,
By all
can you go
means.
back, can you go into the actual information, right? So no, go back where you have the scenarios 1 through 3. Okay, so unless is what you're telling me, because to me, we're all talking about one country.
One country, yes.
We're all talking about the people in general.
Yes. Mhm.
We're also talking about the same arts and craft and safari.
Same industries.
Why would we, I'm just asking here, not assume because of the trend of events or scenarios that are occurring that they are not connected? It's
Which
so
trend?
Okay, what I'm saying is, one, it started off with one, the citizens were unable. 2, after they were unable, there were recent killings in the tourism.
No, where did you get that from?
No, what I'm saying is everything in terms of your scenarios are relative to the same country, and the events to me led from one to the other to the other. We're not saying.
Let me ask you this, all right? We have a large illegal Haitian population in the Bahamas. True?
Mm-hmm.
We just had a strike at our main airport. True?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any reason to connect those two events? Still the Bahamas.
Yeah, I understand. I do understand your point. I just wanted to be clear. So when I am able to do my assignment, that we should treat every scenario independently. Absolutely,
unless you're told otherwise. All right. Okay. One of the things that we were going to save for probably later on in the semester, but maybe it's time to sort of a note of warning here. We're going to focus, unless we're told otherwise, on the very first activity or action or reaction, right? What we're calling first order condition. For example, all right, remember last time I talked about going on the key on a Friday for a drink? In that case, I bought a beer and I drank it. The first order condition would be, how did I feel drinking that beer? I liked it, it felt good, it went down great, it gave me satisfaction. First order condition. That is where your analysis stops. Because it is possible for you, what we call second or third order condition, to say, okay, yeah, he got a beer, which means he got some alcohol in the system. That means he can drive drunk. That means he possibly can get in an accident, probably can kill somebody, probably can end up in jail, lose his job, lose his wife, family, and all of those are very real possibilities. But you see, those are sort of steps down the road. Unless you're told otherwise, we want you to focus on just the first step. We understand that there may be subsequent steps that may be possible, but then it gets a lot more complicated, and then mathematically and graphically, it makes it a lot more messy. And then we start getting into higher levels of economics than we are able to cover in this semester. All right. So we want to focus on the first event, the first result, the first situation that occurs, what we call the first order condition. And in this particular case, we are looking at each event, each scenario, and looking at the first order condition associated with those scenarios. And one of the key functions of a first order condition in economics is that unless there is a clear and distinct line connecting one event to another event, we cannot assume that those events are connected. Right? It just makes it less messy. I do understand what you're saying, and you are quite right. In the absence of any other information, it's very easy to say that, yeah, I can see where these may be connected. Right. There will be times when I tell you there is a connection, and because that's going to be important, particularly when we get to the second half of the semester, because when we start talking about government policies affect a lot of things in a lot of different ways. So then we will extend our analysis in a lot of different ways, but currently we want to focus on one event and the first order condition emanating from that one event. Right. But I do understand what you're saying, and I do understand the desire to make that connection. I don't want you to do that at this stage.
So, Mr. Demerit,
Yes, ma'am.
for number 3,
Yes.
okay, where we said that is asymmetric. Okay, asymmetric for arts, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what would be the correct answer? You might have to go back to the question.
Yes, question. African National Bank gave us $10 million for arts and crafts.
Right, so is the answer for that, we're only gonna, do you want us to draw the diagram, or you want us to state what happened? You want both of them?
Yes.
You want the
Drawing
diagram
it-
and you want us,
Drawing the diagram, it always makes it clear, even if you stumble over your words.
okay. Did the question, you were moving fast. Did the question ask, or that was your question that you asked, what the government can do? Because I don't want,
Yeah. Here is there any further action that you would recommend to the government?
okay. So you
If
just,
so, please advise.
so you want me, when I said they can increase their salary at that time and then can add more workers and just leave it as that? Is that good enough?
Okay. Okay. Now let's see if you tell me if what you're saying, so that I can follow what you're thinking in your head. Okay. Now we have an arts industry that is now improving because of the extra money. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what are you suggesting to the government? The government is faced with a situation where one sector of the economy is improving. The other sector of the economy is not going forward, but it's not falling backwards.
I was saying that once the art section is getting these extra funds, they can maybe go up a little bit on the salary to entice.
Go up on the salary for what? The arts or safari?
For the arts, not the safari, because that's where the money is, in the arts.
Okay.
Yes.
And
You want me-
why are we increasing the salary for arts?
You need to make it more attractive to get more.
But
More use.
arts is already growing, because for the $10 million we got from the bank.
Yeah, but didn't we see?
Sorry.
So what will be, you tell me now, what will be the best answer for that question then? Help me out here.
Look what the question asks. Is there any further action that you would recommend?
No.
Yeah, but when I say,
It
Well,
doesn't
that
say you,
means
it
that
doesn't say,
no.
it doesn't say you have to recommend an action, you know, it's asking
Okay.
you. Listen, you have a
So
sector, you have a sector of the economy that is doing well. Do you want to mess with it? Do you need to mess with it?
no, not really. If it's doing good, then whatever
Leave it
you was doing
alone.
before, leave it alone. So I can put an answer and say no, and that's fine.
Exactly. Yes, because it's
Okay.
asking you. It's not saying recommend an action to the government. It's saying, is there any action that you would recommend? No, keep your hands off the stuff. You know, focus on
So
something
only
else.
if there is, then
Right. There may be a situation where you think really government should do something. Like 3 scenarios ago where you have bums sitting on the blocks, girls just popping up babies for no reason. Now, yeah, you should do something, but them. Yeah. But this scenario, leave these people alone. They're making money for all of us. Now, of course, you can write it in better language than that. Or you could just say no and leave it at that.
You did mention though, Mr. Demerit, that in this scenario where if they receive these funds, then automatically we would assume the Safari would improve. It's an overall improvement.
In my fine and
Let's see if I'm following you. So
You said something earlier, don't quote me, but you said something earlier, I think, whereas you were saying if they had received the $10 million, then for one sector, wouldn't the entire sector improve?
No.
What?
Okay. Let's say your economy is $1 billion economy.
yeah, what situation?
And it's split 500 million, 500 million, right? And one sector, in this case, the arts, went from 500 million to 600 million. Does not mean the entire economy is now worth 1.1 billion. Even though Safari is still only worth 500 million, arts is now worth 600 million.
You're being interrupted. Natonya Naren, sorry, can you mute your mic, please?
Okay, so we have an economy, and let's say currently Safari contributes 500 million to the economy, and arts contributes 500 million to the economy. So right now, the entire economy is worth $1 billion. Now, arts improved to the point where arts is now contributing 600 million to the economy. Safari is still contributing 500 million, but doesn't that mean the value of the entire economy has gone up?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's all we're saying. We didn't say, right, I'm not saying in that case Safari has gone up. Safari is still where it was before, but the total. You and your husband working together, your husband get a raise. The whole family finances has improved, even though your salary stayed unchanged. That's all we're saying. All right, so I'm very interested. Oh no, one more. There is a general nationwide strike. What happens?
Number one.
The entire economy slips backwards. All right, fine. So in that case, the economy is moving away from the PPC, right? Because it's falling backwards. And finally, any recommendations? You're the prime minister, you got a strike on your hands. Not just any kind of strike, you got a nationwide strike. What do? Anything? I'll let you think about that. It might come up, and I don't know if that's part of, if a similar one comes up in your homework, yeah, but we'll see.
That's so
Okay.
general, man.
Sorry?
It's so general. You can come up with so many answers to that one. That's so true.
Yes, that's the whole point. I want to see what you're thinking. Okay. So that should give you, I think, enough to know. There's a second part of your homework. Right. Let's see. Did I include that? Hang on, folks. Yes. Second part of your homework is on economic principles. Right. And I think you're being asked, if I recall correctly, I can pull it up. Let's see. Let me stop sharing this for the moment. And let's see if I can share. Okay, you should be able to see your homework. Let's see. Oh, we do have bombs in the first question of your homework. Second question, we have a hurricane. Third question, you have the World Bank gave these people some money. Fine, okay. So you have something to work with. All right. Second part of your homework is on key economic principles. All right. And you're okay. Yes. You're asked to identify the principle and explain why you chose that particular principle. So we're not going to talk about this specific homework, but we can look at examples in our notes. Okay. So once again, you should be able to see our class notes. And here, let's work this up through together if we can. We're asked to identify the appropriate economic principle and to justify your answer. All right. You're certainly free to go back through your notes. Okay. Remember what our economic principles are. There is the principle of opportunity cost, which says it is the next best choice. Is what we would most rather have been doing if we weren't doing what we're doing. The product that we would most likely have want to consume if we hadn't spent the money on something else. Right. So the principle of opportunity cost is not just any alternative choice, but it's the next best choice. Right. Then what you have, we have the marginal principle. And the marginal principle says that we would always compare marginal benefit of consuming the next item or doing the next service versus the marginal cost of consuming the next item or doing the next service. So we compare marginal benefit versus marginal cost. And then the third principle is what? It is the why am I drawing a blank? Thankfully, I have all of them listed right here. Principle of diminishing returns. See, y'all gonna help me out, you know. Principle of diminishing return says if output is produced with 2 or more inputs. All right, so if you have 2 or more things going into this production process, all right, if you increase one input while holding the other input or inputs fixed, then beyond some point, called the point of diminishing returns, output will increase at a decreasing rate. Right? That is eventually principle of externality, also known as the spillover principle. And the principle of externality says that for some goods or service, the cost spills over onto other non-involved parties. That's called a negative externality. And for some goods or services, the benefits spill over onto some non-involved parties, and that's called a positive externality. The reality principle says that we care about the real value or purchasing power of money or income as opposed to the nominal value. We care about how much our money can actually buy as opposed to what's written on the bill. And finally, the principle of voluntary exchange says that any voluntary exchange, emphasis on the word voluntary, between 2 parties makes both parties better off. Now that we are reminded of our principles, you're being asked to work overtime for additional $50 an hour. That is some good overtime money. Right. The problem is that you have Mr. Demerit's midterm exam coming up, and you know you really need to study if you're going to pass this exam. Right. So, any ideas? What principle would we consider in terms of addressing this scenario? I know what I thought about, but that doesn't mean that what I thought about is the only possible response.
What about the voluntary exchange?
Explain.
You're voluntarily exchanging your time for money, and a good overtime pay at that.
All right, so you think then, if you were to voluntarily accept working overtime, all right, you're better off because the $50 is worth more to you than the time that you'd be doing whatever it is you're doing. And the company would be better off having your labor for that period. So you're saying you're both better off. I'm asking, I'm not passing a judgment, I'm just asking if that's what you're saying.
And for that period, yeah, you will have to make an adjustment, or I guess manage your time later on to fit in a study schedule.
Whoa. Now you're going one step further. No. Right now, if I'm following you, you deal with that first sentence, not the whole question, one, that first piece. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so that first piece, you're arguing that first piece looks like, but the principle of voluntary exchange could apply to that first piece, is what you're saying.
Yes.
All right. What about the second piece? Does the principle of voluntary exchange apply to the second piece? You have a midterm exam coming up, and you need to study.
What about marginal principle?
Explain.
So it's like you basically, all right, so like hypothetically, let's say, you need 4 hours to study successfully, right? So you could calculate, okay, if I work 2 hours overtime, it's like you measuring the cost and benefits of each scenario, and that'll determine like how you go about making your decision whether you want to work extra.
So
or
let's see if I'm following you. All right. So you're saying I'm going to look at the marginal benefit of working overtime versus the marginal cost of working overtime. And the
Correct.
marginal benefit of working overtime is $50 an hour. And the marginal cost of working overtime is less time for you to study?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly how I worded it.
Okay, so then you would need to refine that concept a little bit further. And you would have to say something along the lines of, okay, that first hour of overtime that I work, right? You make $50. The cost to you, you could argue, may not be so bad because you would still have at least 3 hours of studying that you could do. If you said you needed 4 hours, right?
Right.
Okay. So then, what if you work 2 hours? Would 2 hours of studying be sufficient? What if you work 3 hours and only leaves 1 hour studying?
Right.
See, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying the way you would need to couch your response would be in terms of the benefit of each additional hour you're working versus the cost of each additional hour you're working.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
If you explain it that way, that would be certainly acceptable as an answer. I'm sorry, I can't see you guys. I only can see the slide, so I can't see who's talking. So the young lady who just before you.
I think that was Fabian.
Yes.
Oh, Fabian. Okay, I didn't know because I can't see. Okay, I have no problem with your answer because remember I was saying it's can you reliably justify it on economic terms using the economic principles, and certainly the first part of this question you can absolutely answer in terms of the principle of voluntary exchange. Right. But then you have to address the second part of the question. And the principle of voluntary exchange cannot be applied to the second part of this question. Now, you could certainly split this up into two principles if you can identify two separate principles. If you can say the principle of voluntary exchange certainly applies to the first part. In that case, what would the second part, how would you address the second part of this? Any thoughts?
I would perhaps combine the voluntary exchange with the marginal principle.
Okay.
You don't necessarily need, I mean, it depends on the person. Not everyone aims for 100 to pass a final exam. So like I was saying, where you were saying where you can work maybe an hour or two overtime, and then with the marginal cost, you can possibly allocate maybe an additional 2 hours. You're like, okay, let me scramble the necessary information that I need
Okay.
to get the grade to pass the class.
All right, so let me see if I'm following you. This, this is some deep thinking you're putting me through. All right, so I understand. Principle of voluntary exchange. So you're saying, okay, fine. But you're saying, you know what? I'm not saying you have to work the entire period at $50 an hour. All right, you're saying, okay, fine. I'm happy to work a couple of hours overtime for $50 or $100, $50 an hour. So I got $100 in my pocket. All right. But at some point, all right, I am going to decide that I need to start considering putting in some time to study versus the likelihood of me passing this exam. Does that make sense? If I'm following you?
Yes, that's correct.
So let's say, for example, they want you to work 6 hours overtime. And for the first 3 hours, principle of voluntary exchange. After 3 hours, you said, thank you, I'm going home because I need to go study. And from that point on, the marginal principle kicks in. Yes, no?
Yes, that's possible.
Now, you need to be able to explain that in your answer. Something like that.
What about the very first one, opportunity cost? Because I read over it again, and I think this may apply as well.
Explain.
Basically, you basically analyzing the cost, what is going to cost you in order to capitalize on the opportunity to make extra monies. So you say, okay, if I want to make extra money, I'm going to lose time.
No, that's not how the principle works. Remember how the principle of opportunity cost says it's the next best choice. All right. So working overtime at $50 an hour, what would you most rather have been doing if you wasn't working overtime? It wouldn't be studying. Studying may be what you had to do, but not what you would much rather be doing.
Okay, I see.
So it would be hard to argue opportunity cost for this question. But I like the fact that you're willing to think of other possibilities. Like I said, it may very well be that you think of stuff that I hadn't considered, and I'm thinking, I make sense. I can't poke no holes in that. That's what we're going with. All right, how about question 2? The police department develops a new unit that only deals with traffic offenses and aggressively monitors and enforces all traffic laws, issuing tickets for even minor offenses. If y'all ever was to make me prime minister, I can get a police commissioner who would do just this.
Mr. Demerit.
Yes,
sorry,
ma'am.
Before we move on to question 2, would the principle of diminishing returns work for the first one?
You tell me. Explain.
Well,
Walk me through what you're thinking.
well, it's saying that produce with two or more outputs where you increase one output while the other one is on hold or on fix.
Okay, what are you increasing?
Well, you can increase working the overtime for that particular period. The same
Okay,
amount
so you're increasing an hour work. Okay.
Yes, while putting studying on hold.
Mm-hmm.
And then it says that you should increase it as long as the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost, correct?
No, that's the marginal principle, not the principle of diminishing returns.
But this is under the diminishing returns.
I'm saying that's two different principles. The marginal principle is not the principle of diminishing returns. The marginal principle is marginal benefit versus marginal cost. The principle of diminishing returns for this will be as you increase the hours worked.
Uh-huh.
All right. What is the downside? Because you're not getting less and less out of this.
No.
Every hour you work, you get $50.
The downside is, I guess, studying, that's the only downside, not being fully ready to take your examination.
There's a disconnect somewhere. All right. Because see, I still think you're mixing up the two principles. Diminishing return says, as I increase an activity, I get less and less benefit from that activity. So as long as I continue to increase an activity, in this case, working, right? I put in more and more hours. I would be getting less money per hour. That would be diminishing returns.
So the diminishing returns doesn't work in terms of
now, if you had said diminishing returns in terms of the number of hours I was studying versus the amount I was getting out of studying, say, for example, you were trying to pull an all-nighter, right? From 7 to 8 o'clock, you study, you might get a lot out of it. Even 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, you don't get quite as much. 12 to 1, you start to dive count. 1 and 2, you don't even know where that hour went. 2 and 3, you're sleeping pretty much the whole thing. So you're getting less, and even though you're still technically studying for an hour, you're getting less and less out of the process. See, that would be diminishing returns.
Okay, understood.
Right. It would be, I would have difficulty seeing how you can argue this. This certainly can be argued as a marginal principle, marginal benefit versus marginal cost. Because the marginal benefit is the money, $50 for every hour you work. The marginal cost is less and less time available to exam, which means less and less likely that you're going to pass. That would be marginal benefit versus marginal cost.
Would that have been the principle that you would have gone with?
Yes, I would have gone with the marginal principle here. But I can see the principle of opportunity cost here as well. Yeah, no, marginal principle would probably be the ideal one. But I like Fabian's take on the first side of it. I hadn't thought about the principle of voluntary exchange, and that certainly works for the first half of the question, but it doesn't really work for the second half. So you would have to back that up with a second subsidiary principle to deal with the second half of the question. It can be done, and there's no reason why you have to limit yourself just to one principle for the entire question. But you, in that case, she would have to be clear that she's looking at two separate principles that deal with the two different parts of the question. But certainly there was nothing wrong with it. And if she had done it that way, she would certainly get the full marks for it. But I can't see anything beyond that being appropriate for this particular question.
So if that was the case, based on Fabian's suggestion, if we were to use a chart similar to the marginal benefits and cost, is it safe to put in the time
That would-
factor? Let's just say,
That would have
let's
to be
just
for the
say
second
first.
half of the question.
Right, no, I'm saying even for the first half, we're using the marginal versus her, what's the other option she chose?
Okay, so even for the first half, you're saying, okay, I'm going to use the marginal principle for the entire question. Right? And you're saying, it depends. Okay, let's say you're saying marginal benefit is $50 an hour, right? And the marginal cost means that my chance of passing this course falls by a certain percentage. You don't have to put in the actual percentage because you don't know, but you do know that for every additional hour you are on this job, you get $50. But for every additional hour you're on this job, your chance of passing this exam goes down. That's what you're thinking?
Right. So my question is,
that would
if
work.
right, but if I use a diagram, I know you said that we can use, similar to your presentation, you have a diagram in there that
Yes.
has benefit versus cost. What I'm asking is, we can come up with our own timing that says our overtime is any time beyond 5 p.m. and after that, we would get the 50 an hour. Like, we're coming up with our own time frame, our own scenario, because you never set a time. All you said is overtime, so we can only assume what our overtime can be. If we give you a diagram similar to that.
Okay, so let's say you create a table.
Right.
And your table says you start your overtime work at 6 p.m.
Correct.
And between 6 and 7, by 7 o'clock, your marginal benefit is $50.
Exactly.
What is your marginal cost between 6 and 7?
What's the cost again? The cost would refer to what I'm actually making.
No,
Are you talking about the hour in which I'm losing my studies?
Yes.
My
What's the
marginal cost in that case, let's just say, it wouldn't be anything because I would not study before 6 p.m. I'm just saying, what if my marginal cost is 0 because I'm a person who studies from 10 to 12?
Okay, fine. So the marginal cost between 6 and 7 is 0. Between 7 and 8 is 0. 8 and 9 is 0. 9. What about 9 and 10? What's your marginal cost then? What's your marginal cost between 10 and 11?
In that case, I can have an increase to me because then if I choose to study at that time, which I'm just saying, hypothetically saying.
Okay, if you were to do that, the better way to do that, you would have to quantify the costs associated with you not studying. So let's say you hypothetically say, for every hour you don't study, the likelihood of you passing this exam goes down by 5%.
Okay.
See, that would allow you to compare $50 benefit for every hour versus 5% loss for every hour.
See, okay.
Would that make sense?
Yeah, I was trying to connect to see how, if I use that example, how I can input that calculation that showed the difference. Okay, makes sense.
That would work. Yeah. All right. Can we go on? All right. So we have a new department within the Royal Bahamas Police Force called the Royal Bahamas Traffic Unit. And they are issuing tickets left and right for anything you do on the road that is contrary to the Road Traffic Act. Any principle we're looking at?
Maybe the spillover,
Spillover, correct.
Yeah, principle of externality.
Okay, explain. Are we talking positive externality, negative externality, what?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
I'm asking you.
Well, if you ask me,
Mhm.
it'll be a negative externality for me
Explain.
because something that I have no a part of or no decision in, like the government enforcing more police work, it's affecting me to have to be forced to do
Are you
more things.
speeding?
Well,
Are you jumping a red light?
well, no, not necessarily, but it
Are
could be
you
more than that.
driving with unlicensed vehicle?
No, but just
No insurance?
simple harassment is gonna go up for me.
No, when they said they're harassing you, they're saying if you commit an offense, we can give you a ticket.
So that's a negative externality
How's it? Okay, explain.
because
I like
because
this
if
one.
the no, because think about it, if there's more police persons on the road, more, yeah, they're gonna try to lock down the persons who are actually committing offenses, but there are more persons that they can't.
Okay, let me help you out.
I try to, yeah, I try
Let
to
me help
explain
you.
it in a
I think
professional
we
way.
just have a negative relationship between the police and
Yeah, but
society.
that's not a negative externality.
Besides the
Negative
point of
relationship and negative externality. Let me see if I can think of one. You do everything right on the road, but because of the increase in, let's say, roadblocks,
Yeah, traffic. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
you see.
Yeah,
So,
that's a
you
good
know, it is costing you, but you are minding all your P's and Q's on the road, but you're still suffering because of the police activity, because of excessive roadblocks and stopping and all the other issues that they're dealing
Right.
with. That will be a negative externality. Right. Possible. What about positive externality?
Can I have both?
Of course you can have both. I want you to
Okay.
have both. You better
Good.
please give me both.
Yeah. Because I mean, like what you said, on one end, you may have that negatively impacting the good citizens, like a few of us, and at the
Say
same,
us.
I had to put like us.
Okay.
The same fold, you may have positively a positive impact on the police force, whereas they are increasing their budget or their funds.
No. You
No?
can't use police force because they are an involved party. They're benefiting from this process.
Well,
That's why it's
increase of the
positive.
government revenue.
The government, the revenue, then you can't say the government.
Can't say government as well. They're the ones who passed the laws that
Who
gave the
let
police this
them
Can
power.
I, can I
All right, what
say
of my-
the crime,
what of
the what is it, what can I say? It's increasing or decreasing crime in terms of by booking them, maybe they
You could say
also have
safer
the
streets.
save the streets then, yeah.
No, not save the streets, safer streets.
Or safer, yeah.
Yeah.
Safer
Yeah,
streets.
that would be good. I mean,
Identifying
what about-
criminals at the same time when they do their booking,
yeah, but how is that a benefit?
because they've already, it's already a traffic. To me, they're already booking persons. I'm just saying, just like how normally we would book a person for tins, that don't mean we're not going to search the back of their trunk to see what other things they have in there.
Yeah, but remember now, we deal with economics. Okay. And in fact, you told me this is supposed to be the principle of externality. So I'm saying, based on the principle of externality, spillover principle, what is the spillover benefit? Who is it benefiting that is not involved in this process? They stop a criminal, fine. That benefits the police. That makes it sucks for the criminal. But how is that benefiting anybody else?
Benefits the citizens too, because it makes it safer, like you say.
Okay, it makes driving on the streets safer. I could buy that. Anything else?
But we can't just put increase of revenue and just leave it. We ain't gonna say who revenue gets increased. We
Well,
can't just
I'm
forget
gonna
it.
add on to that though.
No. You could say
No?
it could benefit you in terms of maybe lower insurance premiums because less traffic accidents. Less accidents where nobody has insurance. Possible. You could say it benefits you in terms of lower cost to have your car fixed because too often you get an accident and you got to fix your own car. Right.
Let me add on to that though.
By all means.
Because I'm curious. So what if it's a situation where, let's say, I don't know, my spouse is a police officer and now she gets more overtime, so our family income goes up. Can I use that
No.
as a positive externality?
Is she not benefiting?
But I'm talking about me.
Are you her spouse?
I mean, that's
What
what
is
I'm
hers
saying.
is yours? Because I'm sure she thinks what is yours is hers. Nope.
Fair.
Uninvolved parties.
Mm.
Yeah.
My daddy get a raise, so now I have more lunch money.
Now, no, I mean, if you want to say your wife is police, you get more money from her and you give it to your sweetheart. Now, she's an uninvolved party.
And she benefiting off that.
Yeah.
And just leave that alone, leave that right there.
Yeah.
But the idea is that to sit down and think about this, even after you answered it, go over your answer and think, am I clearly making sure that these are uninvolved parties? Right.
Okay,
Okay.
so Mr. Demerit,
Yes, ma'am.
for negative, we're gonna do a lot of roadblock, traffic, inconvenience. For positive, we're gonna do safer streets, low insurance premium, and lower cost of getting car fixed.
Possible, unless you can think of others.
Okay, I writing, that's why. Okay, thanks.
No, why you writing? I'm not saying. Listen,
I have to go back and look over these stuff 2, 3, 4 times.
remember, we're saying there's no right or wrong answer here. We're just saying, what are the things that best fit the principles that we've identified? And right now, I haven't heard anything about any other principle that anyone wants to consider for this question. So if not, then, we have to look at it in this case with the spillover principle and decide that who would benefit and who would suffer some cost, who are not involved in this process at all. All right. You can argue people who work in the court system.
I was going to say, what if I hit you with the marginal principle?
Okay, explain.
I'd be like, well, the more police officers and the more work being done, the more money the government has to pay out, and so the government has to.
Why would the government have to pay out?
No, I'm saying the government, right? Who is paying the police officers, right? They have to measure the benefit of having more police on the road versus increasing wages and salaries and overtime.
Okay. So see if I follow you right. The marginal cost of adding additional police to the roads, monitoring traffic problem issues, versus the marginal benefit of having more police on the road.
Right.
Okay, I can see that. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, that'll work.
Maybe even diminishing return too.
Explain.
Because it doesn't state how much police, so that's only a set amount of crime averaging daily, or set amount of infractions daily. So the more police you put on the road, eventually the amount of outcome and crime is going to be stuff. It's going to it's going to be saturated with. Not every police officer is going to eventually have somebody to book or whatever the case may be.
But isn't that a good thing? No, hang on. No, what you're arguing as a principle, I think is right.
Okay.
As a principle, as you add more and more police, eventually, because we got a lot of traffic issues going on. So when we first start adding police, they can be writing a ton of tickets. But the more and more police you add, the more and more tickets they write, sooner or later, I know y'all hard at Bahamian, but sooner or later, y'all decide getting the message. That's what you're saying. And then the number of tickets being written is going to gradually slow down and decrease, so that each policeman will be writing fewer and fewer tickets. Does that sound like what you're saying?
Yes, yes. And the diminishing return is the
Diminishing
amount.
returns.
You're right. The amount of output you're getting from each policeman for what you're paying them is going to decrease. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Damn, okay. I was thinking it was only one principle, but all right, y'all got three. Anyone want to add the next one? No voluntary exchange? Yeah. No? High speed, you give me a ticket. We're not both better off? No, probably not, hey. All right. Fine. They're gonna make ganja legal. Principles, anyone?
I think that's the principle, the spillover principle.
Oh, okay. Should be good.
Reason why
Spillover benefit.
sorry, the spillover benefit.
Yeah, let's start with the benefit. What is the benefit of making marijuana legal? For people who are not involved.
For people who are not involved.
Because remember, that's what the spillover principle is all about. People, in this case, benefiting who is not involved at all in marijuana.
Okay, so I would say if marijuana is made legal, then that can possibly be a way to boost the economy.
How so?
Because if it's legal, then that's something that you can possibly sell, right?
Okay, so let's convert that into economics now. So you're saying if marijuana is made legal, persons who currently have no interest in selling marijuana because they don't want to go to jail, now have an incentive to get into the marijuana industry, marijuana sector, open a marijuana store.
Yeah, that's where the money at.
An entrepreneur. Okay, okay, all right. You can say the same thing about farmers.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, I get that. Okay, you know, I know a lot of Christian people in this country would you know, want to throw a rope around your neck for that, but economically, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
What are the costs?
What are the?
We said there are more benefit, Mr. Demerit.
I'm sorry.
We just sticking to that one benefit?
I mean, don't you think that's a good benefit?
Yeah.
Okay, but you got more? All right, give me more.
Well, I guess that'd be the same thing because they could open up medicine shop.
Okay.
They use marijuana for medicine.
Okay. All right, okay, medicinal marijuana. Okay, I got it, sure. Any of that will work, perfectly acceptable as a spillover benefit of the legalization of marijuana. All right, what are the spillover costs?
Maybe persons who are asthmatic or who don't like smoke or, you know, whatever, have to deal with that in more populated areas, maybe. Or
More so the cigarettes?
yeah, no, that's
Cigarettes
why
illegal.
I pulled back some. That's why I pulled back some.
I mean, yeah, it's possible, I guess. You know, if you're desperate for a spillover cost, that'll work in a pinch, I guess. I mean, it wouldn't be wrong. I say, I would be looking at that and your homework and thinking, you think you can't come up with something better?
Well, the settlers now can go in the shop and just purchase as much marijuana as they want. They can just abuse it freely. And stay high all the time.
And this is a bad thing?
If you have to go to work,
a negative,
people judgment will be impaired and stuff like that because everybody can be like,
yeah, but understand, these are people who are involved.
It's
Right?
Maybe
like
a business owner,
exchange.
yeah, maybe like a business owner.
It is not spilled over onto them. They decide to go into the marijuana store and buy marijuana and smoke and get high and try and go to work.
Okay, so how about this? It can
Okay.
possibly lead to addiction. And because people are so addicted and want it so bad, they start to steal, break into homes.
No. These are still people involved. They
Yeah,
went
but
and
then
they
it
bought the
affected me.
marijuana.
It affected me because they breaking into my house trying to take
Okay.
my things.
So we ain't talking but them.
Okay.
Oh,
Because
okay.
as soon as you bring them into it, it ain't spill over. Now, if you only talk about you say, okay, if marijuana is more made legal, more people will be smoking and more people gonna want to break into my house. So now it's spilling over to me. I ain't got nothing to do with the marijuana trade. I ain't making no money off marijuana. I ain't interested in smoking marijuana, but yet some Jones are breaking into my house. That is where it spilled over onto you.
Dying,
But
same thing that they just say, no?
No, it's where the emphasis is. Soon as you saying it's spilling over onto the Joneser, no, it ain't spilling on him because he gone and he buy the marijuana. It's spilling on to somebody who's not involved.
Not involved, right? That's the key, not involved. I
Okay.
see. So what about voluntary
what-
exchange? Oh,
Right.
sorry. Then you
No,
were
no,
saying-
no, I forget you. I want to make sure that.
What about it spilling over to children?
Explain.
Okay,
Presumably, like alcohol, like cigarettes,
right?
got to be 18.
Correct. So
Well-
presumably are not involved or shouldn't be involved, presumably, right?
Okay. So what's your argument?
It's spilling over because like how they have access to alcohol even though they're not supposed to be involved with it. They can access the marijuana now.
How? They go.
From
They go.
You
family
mean how
members,
just
writing it down.
I understand.
Oh, you could go in the store.
We're talking economics. All right. So
Do you
let's say
know-
they get fake ID and go into the marijuana store.
Right.
Okay.
So you want us, so we can put increased fake ID? Oh, God.
No. Understand. You can't. In that case, you cannot use the kids because they chose to purchase the marijuana, so they're not uninvolved.
But did they find marijuana butt all on the ground and stuff like how you see cigarette butt?
And they picked it up
In the-
and smoked it. If they never pick it up in the first place, ain't no issue.
Okay, but if people freely smoke in the place and they playing on the basketball court
Mhm.
and they inhaling it in a way of secondhand
Okay.
smoking.
Now, secondhand smoking, yes, you can certainly use secondhand marijuana smoke
Right.
as a spillover cost. Absolutely, that would be totally correct. Right.
Thank you.
That would be.
That what I did the first time and you tell me that's a
No, Sanchez. Don't try to take my answer.
No.
Try to take my answer.
Okay. Here we say, as long as the person who is suffering the suffering did not get involved in the business in the first place, in no big or small way. If you're saying I got lung cancer from somebody smoking in my office, that has spilled over onto me. I wasn't doing the smoking. I wasn't buying the cigarettes. I have no interest in cigarettes. Right? If your child gets lung cancer from you smoking marijuana, your smoking marijuana has spilled over onto your child, which is very different than if you left your marijuana butt someplace and your child pick it up. If your child pick it up, now the child is an involved party because they chose to involve themselves regardless of whether they should or they shouldn't. You see the difference?
Yes.
Okay. Can we try voluntary exchange? No.
Right, so you said, well, the principle speaks to
Wait. I'm sorry, you are,
Crystal.
sorry? Oh, Crystal.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. I can't see.
No, I know. I wasn't saying sarcastically.
Okay, so.
I was saying the voluntary exchange, the principle speaks to exchange between two parties, which
Should
makes
make
it
both
better.
parties better off.
Right,
Okay.
so in the sense, whereas marijuana is recreational for a person who is involved, I guess, it's benefiting them for use, whether it's medicinal purposes or personal or social, however, while at the same time, the persons who are not involved are still gaining, which is the stores that are selling the products.
All right, so let me see if I'm following you right. The principle of voluntary exchange says if there's a voluntary exchange between two parties, in this case, we can't call them a dealer no more because that sounds like some back alley stuff. All right, but the marijuana pharmacist, I don't know what the correct term is, fine, and you as the customer, they're better off because they make money selling you the ganja. You're better off because you're getting seriously high and everything looks better when you're high.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I'm saying.
I like that.
It's
I
benefiting
like that
both.
a lot.
Hold on, hold on. And then for the people, for the people that do not smoke, but still can inhale it. Get
But
high
I'm not
the same
talking
time,
about,
they
I'm not talking
benefit
about that
too.
principle.
Yeah, but see, that's not voluntary exchange then.
Right, I'm not talking about that principle. I'm talking about
But
exchange.
that might be a positive positive externality in that you get to get high for free. Yeah, all right. Okay. Now you get the idea. There has to be people who are not involved.
The marginal benefit doesn't have to be numeric, right? It could be like a pros and cons thing.
Explain.
Like, for example, the government, before making the decision, they have a meeting and they measure the pros and cons of, okay,
No.
legalize.
That's what I mean. I mean, explain in terms of marginal benefit, marginal cost.
Well,
because remember, we have to use the new language that we're learning.
Okay.
All right. So what is the marginal benefit to who's involved? Who are the parties involved?
The government and the people.
Which people? The marijuana people?
No.
Or the regular people?
The general populace.
Okay. So, all right. All right. So a marginal benefit of legalizing marijuana.
So they may work out, okay, it brings in more money.
Okay.
And it may produce more jobs. Now,
let me stop you right there. All right, because again, the principle is all about marginal benefit and marginal cost. So you have to talk about for every additional marijuana license that they issue. Because remember now, you have to phrase it in terms of every additional unit.
Okay.
How much additional benefit is gained from every additional unit? In this case, the unit is every new marijuana deal that we license. All right. What is the marginal benefit of issuing these additional license is additional revenue. That's tax revenue, presumably. Or business license fee. All right. So if you put it that way, fine. Then what is the marginal cost of adding more and more marijuana licenses? Or if you want to use a different industry, what about taxi drivers, taxi plates? The marginal benefit of adding more and more taxi plates is you get tax revenue for every new plate that you authorize, you being the government. All right, that will be the marginal benefit to you as the government.
Okay.
What will be the marginal cost of issuing more and more taxi plates? More and more taxis on the road, more traffic congestion, more rambunctious taxi drivers, more harassment of tourists. I don't know. You see? But the point is that if you're going to use any of the principles, you have to couch them in the language of the principles. We're trying to very much to move away from the sort of broad-based conversation, common sense kind of conversation, because we're learning a whole new language and using that new language. But you may have a thought there, yeah, but you have to see how to flesh out that thought from a purely economic perspective. All right, okay, number 4. Man, you're just letting time go and all kind of chatting and conversation. Fine. I can still try to teach at least half hour, but okay, fine. The cost of living went up by 7.5%. You got a 10% raise. That should be, why are you smiling? Principle. There's only one principle here. Sorry. Unless somebody could give me a really good argument, I only can see one principle.
Reality, maybe. Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Ooh, we got 2. I thought it was just one. We have 2. Okay, let's start with the reality. Walk me through it.
Because.
But what does the reality principles say?
So it says, you basically care about not the face value, but what it can do.
What your money can buy.
Right.
Okay. So explain that as it relates to this question.
So you got a 10% raise, and cost of living went up 7.5%. So the reality of the situation is you net 2.5
positive
raise, positive, right?
So your money could go a little bit further. 2.5% further.
It's just so you can actually.
It ain't gone 10% further, but at least it's gone a little bit further.
Right. It's not negative. So the reality of the whole situation, you're going up a little bit.
Well, maybe you aren't exactly smiling, but you don't cussing either.
Right. You don't mind.
Okay.
Fair.
Okay.
Fair.
All right. Marginal principle.
After hearing the reality principle, I think I agree with that.
No. Tell me what you were thinking. You might have an even better answer.
No, so what I was thinking was that, okay, marginal. So with the marginal principle, we're going based on the
marginal benefit and marginal cost.
Right. So I would say the benefit was getting a raise 10%. And the cost would have been the cost of living going up by 7.5%. Right. And so when we look at it, even though the cost of living went up 7.5%, the marginal benefit, there's still a marginal benefit because we got a 10% raise.
Well, mother's sick. Okay. Let me see if I could fix it in economics. I don't think you're wrong. I hadn't thought about it, and that's why I like it. Okay. So if you said that the marginal benefit of working a whole year in this stinking job was a 10% raise, right? But the marginal cost of living in this whole stinking country for a year, cost of living gone up 7.5%. I get 10% raise, but cost of living gone up 7.5%. I come out ahead. The marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost. So I guess I'm moving to stateside just yet. What do you think?
That sounds like sense.
Well, what I said, but it needs to sound like sense when you're writing it in your homework.
Okay. So if I was to write that answer for this question, how many points I'll get?
You probably get full marks. It would be hard for me to take off any marks.
Okay.
Because you would have used an economic principle and you would have applied an economic principle correctly.
Okay.
It may not have been the principle that I would have chosen, but I can't say that the way you use it was incorrect. So I would have to give you a mark.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling you, right and wrong is a fluid concept for most of this semester. It's, can you convince me from an economic perspective? Right. That's why you see where I keep mentioning we are learning a new language and we have to use that new language. All right. If you use that new language correctly, even if that wasn't the thought I had in mind, then okay, you do it, you get your point. Yeah, but even if you use the language correctly, but you're not making any economic sense, then dog eat your lunch. Okay, last one. You're looking to expand your landscaping business. Each new hire increases your revenue per worker by a further 10%. But each new hire increases your labor cost per worker by 12%. Currently, your weekly revenues are $3,000 and your weekly labor cost is $2,500. How many additional workers do you hire? And this question carries double points. You probably need a piece of paper to work this out. Okay, so this is pretty much marginal benefit and marginal cost. Sorry, I know some of you may think differently. You would have to give me some really strong argument. So then,
I'm sorry, but Tamara, did you say your answer for the fourth one before I
didn't give an answer. I said both were correct.
Oh,
both were argued correctly. I had originally thought, leaning very heavily, I thought there was only the reality principle. But I was informed and I could not, argue with the fact that it is possible and to look at that in terms of the
Why is he trying to catch up?
marginal principle.
Miko, mute your phone. Tommy.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
People and children. See, that's why I ain't never having none of them. But okay, fine.
What do you mean never? Anyway. What's the matter?
Never, ever.
You know the term off the calendar or on the calendar? You still off the calendar, on the calendar?
I am 50.
Also on the calendar.
Well, you can still make babies.
11 babies at 65.
Not me. You know how I had to work not to have none?
70. They're having them at 70 now.
I ain't that fool no more. Anyway, back to our business.
What is this now? This you're saying is marginal cost for you.
Right. What's the marginal cost of hiring an additional worker?
So what does it say here? It will be the 2,500, is it? What is this? Currently, your weekly revenues are 3,000 and your weekly labor cost.
It's 2,500.
2,500.
All right. So we hire one more worker. How much does it cost us? 2,500.
2,500.
How much do we make when we hire that one worker?
Oh, it increases by 10%. So that's
Okay, so now let's go back again. How much does it cost us when we hire a new worker? Each new hire increases your labor cost by 12%.
12%, not 10, sorry. So
All right, so it's 12% of 2,500. Tell me with the calculator.
come Lanique.
So that's 300.
$300.
$300.
All right, so when we hire another worker, it's going to cost us $300. How much are we going to earn when we hire this new worker?
10%.
10% of 3,000, right?
Right,
And what's 10% of 3,000?
300.
300.
So when we hire this new worker, it costs us 300 and we earn 300 from hiring this new worker.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Do we hire this new worker?
So basically,
No.
we ain't adding or taking away. I mean, we ain't getting nothing extra.
Economics.
And the
There's no
cost,
difference.
the cost is
90.
the same as the revenue.
What's the marginal cost of hiring this new worker?
12%.
Of 2,500, which is,
300.
$300.
what's the marginal benefit of hiring this new worker?
300.
$300.
Right?
So you say
What's the profit for hiring this new worker?
Zero.
$0.
Zero.
And
For
what does the
hiring.
marginal principle say?
Marginal principle.
once the marginal cost exceeds its marginal benefits.
Okay, now let's go back and read the actual principle as opposed to our interpretation of the principle.
We choose, okay. When it says, we choose a level of activity such that the marginal benefit equals the marginal cost. So,
Keep going.
Okay.
All right. The marginal principle is based on a comparison of the marginal benefit and marginal cost of a particular activity. The marginal benefit is the additional benefit, 300, resulting from a small increase in activity. Similarly, the marginal cost, 300, is additional cost resulting from a small increase in activity. One should increase the level of activity as long as the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal cost. That's not the case.
no.
One should reduce the level of activity as long as the marginal cost exceeds the marginal benefit. That is also not the case. We should choose the level of activity such that the marginal benefit equals the marginal cost. So if our marginal benefit equals the marginal cost, should we hire anybody else?
Yes.
Yes.
Man, we just saying we
No.
should hire people as long as the marginal benefit exceeds the marginal
Oh,
cost.
no.
Oh, no then.
But we ain't making no money off of them. They're only taking up space.
Yes, and convert that to economics. We should continue as is because the marginal benefit at that point exactly equals the marginal cost. So we have no need to hire anybody else. Or to use your term, they're just taking up space.
Okay.
Mr. Demerit.
I don't want
You
you
know-
coming back to me and say that's a trick.
No,
Yes.
I know. I was telling you after we undo all of this, right? Then answer 5 questions. You know, we gotta try this again, right?
Try it again.
We gotta go through, well, maybe not this class, but we'll have to go through some more of the principles.
We can go through the homework.
Mr. Merritt, I'm going to be brutally honest, right?
Is
That's
there any
just
other
me.
way?
I'm straightforward. I'm saying that to say first homework is like a midterm to me because now that we're understanding based on your samples given.
Mhm. And you have 5 other classmates to bounce ideas off, to row and make noise until you come to a common understanding of what y'all think the answer should be. Or you could go it alone,
What you say, you know, right or wrong answer?
as long as what you answer can be justified based on the economics.
Okay.
There may be multiple right answers. Yeah, but there certainly can be a wrong answer.
Okay, so for this number 5, the answer we gave just now, all right? Would that give you the double points or no?
Yes, that will give
Okay.
you the double points. All right, let me stop this for a moment and where am I? I'm sharing this. Oh, I took it out. No. I took the question out. You at least not your homework yet, right? No, you at least not it yet.
Of course he did.
Lies.
I mean,
You wanna pull it
I started
across.
brainstorming.
Well, you ain't get to question 7 yet.
7. We don't see 7 on this paper.
Exactly. I can
That's what mine is.
send you a revised homework with a question 7 in it.
My Lord.
No, you need question 7. Question 7 is exactly what we just finished dealing with. You need a question 7. Yeah. Okay. Boy, I got 8 o'clock already. You'll take up all my time. Okay, where are we? Let me at least see what's up next. Okay, any other questions on the homework before we move on? Okay.
I see where you say for number 1, diagrams may be useful as an aid for your response. So,
You see those diagrams that we had before?
right,
These? Just copy one of them that makes sense for your question.
okay, all right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
But of course, you know, the headings will be different.
No, I understand. I really didn't know how you wanted us to do it. Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. No problem. Okay.
What's the total points out of what's the highest can you see?
30, I think.
Oh, it's not the combined 30?
The homework.
For
Yes.
both sections.
Yes.
That's on
Okay.
the screen. This a low 30, but that means you fighting for 5 points each.
Oh, a 5 sound like 3.8.
It's all like 1.5 or 1.85
With all these
out of a
questions.
possible 3. This is the Mary, where do you work?
Central
What's my
Bank.
email address?
Oh no, I didn't even look at it, but to be honest with you.
Yes, I'm at Central Bank.
Oh, okay.
We see why.
You see why I'm at Central Bank?
Yeah, use a tough cookie.
Anyway, okay. Anyway, okay. Jumping into a whole new topic. Let's start with so what we're trying to understand. Remember now, we're talking macroeconomics. So we're talking about the entire economy. And one of the things we talked about last class in terms of, we said, one of the assumptions that we make with economics is that we simplify these very involved concepts to make it easier for us to understand, to facilitate learning. And in particular, when we're talking about the economy as a whole, we can sort of simplify even a very complex economy in a way that still allows us to understand what's going on, but we can still move forward. And to begin with, we want to start talking about what's called the circular flow in an economy. In the economy, including ours, has things going in a circle around the economy in 2 ways. But let's get some definitions now, some concepts, some vocabulary, and then we can begin a more detailed analysis of what we're talking about when we're talking about a circular flow or circular flow diagram or circular flow economy. First, remember how we define households. We said a household is an individual or group of individuals who live in the same housing unit. All right. And here we say households are the ones who own the factors of production. You're the one, of course, you own the labor. You provide the labor for money. All right. You provide your money that goes into a bank that eventually is used to purchase physical capital. All right. You're the one who provides the human capital. The natural resources, of course, you're the one who owns the land and everything in it, even if you own it through your government, say through crown land, etc. We, the people, own the natural resources. All right. So households own the factors of production, and the households in turn market those factors of production to firms through the factor market. And we, in return, receive income for these factors of production. And our income can include things like wages, because we provide labor. When you provide labor, you get wages. Interest, when you put your money in the bank or you buy a bond, you get interest. Rents, if you happen to have some property, whether you're talking apartments or duplexes, triplexes, etc. Dividends is when you purchase shares or stock and you get dividends in return. So we are providing factor production and we're getting money back, income in the form of wages, interest, rents, dividends, etc. And we in turn use that income to purchase stuff, what is called household consumption. All right. So households, we own the factors of production, and we market these factors of production to firms, and in turn, we get income from the firms, whether that income is in the form of wages, interest, rents, dividends, etc. It's all money, and we then use that to purchase goods and services, what we're calling household consumption. Right? That's from the household side. From the company side, from the firm side, they are the ones who produce the consumption goods, right, which they in turn sell to households. The money that the businesses get from households is what the businesses are calling their revenues. Right? And they in turn use these revenues to purchase inputs so they can make more stuff. The inputs that they purchase is the same factors of production that households are trying to sell to them. Okay. So households provide the factors of production, which as far as the firm is concerned, that's their input in the production process. So firms provide factors of production to, households provide factors of production to firms. Firms consider those factors of production its input in its production process. The firms then uses those inputs to produce household goods and services, which they in turn sell to the households for money. All right. So we have this flow of real goods, real assets, real tangible stuff that you can put your hands on that goes from households to firms. Firms make real stuff and in turn sells that real stuff back to households. So on the one hand, you have real stuff going around in one direction and you have money going in the opposite direction. Right? We have described previously our factor markets, which are markets where the factors of production are priced and traded to firms. And goods market is where the consumption goods are priced and traded to households. Sorry, I missed something. 1 second, folks, there is some issue here. You don't belong there. I did something with my slides and they're in the wrong place. Right here. All right, back to my story. All right. So we're saying when you look at any economy, you have the real stuff, physical stuff going in one direction, and then you have the intangible, the cash, the money going in the opposite direction. And we can see that. I'm not sure how clearly you can see the diagram. This is what is called the circular flow diagram. All right. And let's start. Sorry, go ahead.
You mean the diagram that's in our book?
Yeah, it should be in your book, certainly.
Okay, because I thought you were putting it up on the screen, that's why. Okay,
You can't see it on the screen?
no.
No.
No, okay, let's try this again then. Let's share screen. Now?
Yes, now I can see it.
Okay, so yeah, why didn't you say it all the time? Okay, so it was still on your homework? Okay. So let's start with the households. Households, which is on the left-hand side, these are owners of factors of production. And you see the arrow going factors of production, labor, physical capital, human capital, entrepreneurship. These are priced in the factor market. So you have the labor market, for example, is one factor market. The market for real estate is a factor market, right, etc. The finance market, whether you're talking stock market or bond market, is a factor market, right? So households who own a factor production, they sell these factor production to firms, but that transactions take place within the factor market. Right? So as far as the firm is concerned, you can see it purchases inputs via the factor market and uses those inputs to produce goods and services. What the firm produces is called its outputs. And we're still moving along the outside of this circle. Its outputs, which are now marketed in the goods market and made available for households to purchase through the goods market. Whether you're talking furnishing, households, fittings, electrical appliances, goods, whatever it is, all right, that we households purchase, that firms produce. And as far as households are concerned, that is their household consumption. So you have these real products moving around the outside of the economy. Now let's trace the money. When the households provide factors of production to the factor market as inputs to the firm, households get money, wages, interest, dividends, rent, etc. As far as the household is concerned, that is our household income. On the other hand, the firms who are spending this money to purchase these factor production, as far as the firm is concerned, that is its expenditures. So the firm spend money to purchase factor production from households. So as far as the firm is concerned, that's its expenditures. But as far as the households is concerned, that's our household income. And that's our wages, that's our rent, that's our dividends, that's our interest payments. But keep going. So the households use that household income to buy its household consumption, its household goods. As far as the household is concerned, that is considered its household spending. Right? And that's what, if you're a good household, you budget that every month, and you said, okay, this is what my household spending is for the month. And that household spending is on goods and services that a household needs. All right. And the way the households spend that, they go to the goods market. And they purchase household consumption, and that is its household spending. That money in turn ends up going back to the firm as its income or its revenues. Right? The firm says, well, when I sell my stuff to households, the money I get, I consider my revenues. So if you look at the circular flow diagram, it's a very simplified version of an economy where it shows factors of production going in one direction as well as household goods that are being produced by the firm. So how factory production goes to the firms, firms produce goods which in turn are sold to households. So the real sector goes in one direction. Then you have the monetary sector, or the money, going in the other direction. Right? Those are the two parts of any economy. Now, can we look at this diagram and see what's missing? Think of the Bahamian economy. What's missing from this diagram? You have households and you have companies. What's missing?
I know the government.
Government is missing. And government is a huge part of an economy. And if we would include the government, and maybe what I'll do for next class, I will create a diagram that includes government. Government will be squatting right in the middle. And government will be squatting right in the middle because government has its hands in everything. All right, you would see, and it's going to be messy. But if you say, what is government's relationship with households? Government provides services to households, right? Whether it's regulation, making sure we do what we're supposed to do, but government also taxes households. Similar with firms. Government also interacts with the factor market. So it sets labor prices and making sure that children are allowed to work, et cetera, et cetera. Government interacts with the goods market, making sure that what's on the label is what's in the can, et cetera, et cetera. And government taxes both of these markets. But that's just the beginning of what government does. Government takes something out of your wages, interest, dividends, and rents before it even gets to you. Government takes money out of the firm's income or revenue even before it gets to the firm. And then government adds to household spending in terms of taxes, and government adds to firms' expenditures in terms of taxes. And that's just on the inner circle. Government also involves itself in the outer circle as well. So government gets its hands on any economy and makes it extremely complicated and messy. You know what else is missing from this diagram? The external sector. There are no exports or imports associated with this diagram. You know, this would be what is called a closed economy. But we stripped away the government and we stripped away the foreign sector so we can have a simplified version of looking at goods flowing in one direction and money flowing in the other direction. All right, folks, I think I want to stop there for the night. I know you would like to go on, but I'm afraid I want to pause at that point. If you want to read further, we will begin talking about absolute versus comparative advantage. Again, we're still trying to build up our understanding of economic concept. We're trying to build up our vocabulary and build up our understanding of some of these economic terms so that we can begin making full use of them in later classes. Okay, any questions before we call it an evening?
No
All right.
question.
Sending homework tonight, right?
Sorry?
You sending the revised homework tonight?
You're not going to start doing any homework tonight.
Oh, yes, I am.
Oh, God, I got one of those in my class.
Yes, you do.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll
I'm
send a
traveling this
revised.
weekend. I would like to have my homework completed by tomorrow, but
Okay, I will send a revised homework tonight. Look for it in the
Perfect.
next half hour.
thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
All right, good evening.